Hello, everybody. Camille Macris here, and this is episode number 2 of season 2 of the Inner Beauty Podcast. And today I have a very dear friend and beautiful soul joining me, Dr. Brenda Walding. So dignified. Hello, Dr. Walding. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. Oh, it's so funny. It's kind of weird to hear that. But yes.
Well, I mean, you worked for that. So
I did. I will claim it. I own it. I did. I worked hard for that doctorate. So
I'm going to tell you a bit about Brenda, and then we are just going to dive right in. So Brenda is a women's health or holistic wellness and empowerment coach. She is a doctor of physical therapy and specializes in supporting and empowering women to truly heal and thrive. She is the author of Sick of Being Sick, the Woman's Holistic Guide to Conquering Chronic Illness. She is also a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and a certified heart math coach.
yeah.
You are incredible.
Well, thank you. So are you.
Oh, why, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's so great to be with incredible women like you all the time. Brenda is also the circle lead, the circle mama for our North Circle that meets for, I know everyone listening to this podcast won't be in Austin, but if you are in Austin, the first Tuesday of the month, we have Brenda's Circle in North Austin, and it is divine. So we would love to see you there.
Yes, we would.
But today we are going to have a conversation all about the maladies that face the most modern humans, and specifically modern women. We're going to be talking about stress and anxiety, overwhelm, burnout that tends to affect women like us. I'll say women like me, who felt like they were born into this world with a to-do list, who have so much that they want to offer. I think that sometimes we forget that part. You know, like I always say, oh, I'm so type A and high achieving. But what is underneath that, I know for me, is just this radical commitment to make a difference in the world.
Mm. Yes.
And that comes along with these things that we just spoke of. It comes along with feeling sometimes just constantly overwhelmed, like your to-do list is never ending and always expanding, and that there's just not enough hours in the day to do all of the things that matter to us. And for me now, I thought it was challenging when I was single, and now I am married and with a child and with 2 businesses, and it can be a lot. And having this background that, you know, we both have, just as a side note, I knew about Brenda back in my paleo days because she and her husband, she used to be the face of a pretty popular paleo brand. And so I knew of you even before I knew that we lived in the same place, or I had any idea that you cared at all about women's circles. I knew who you were. And I would see videos of, what was it? The turmeric golden milk. That one came through my feed a lot. And other things like that. And so when we actually met for the first time, it was, I was surprised that it was under these circumstances, because this is truly a shared love affair that we both have with women and women's circles, but we also have a shared past with paleo.
Yes. Yeah. I'm surprised we didn't meet earlier in this process.
I am surprised. I guess we were not meant to be taken off track with such trivialities as paleo, because we were here to do the women thing.
Yeah.
But there's a fair amount of conversation already happening in the natural health world about how detrimental it is to have this buildup of chronic stress and anxiety. You know, it leads to adrenal fatigue. It just leads to overall degeneration of all of the systems in our body. And so I think that with your history, I mean, it sounds like you've really been deep in learning about holistic wellness for some time. And so I'm curious how we meld these two conversations about the importance of women coming together in this sacred healing work that we do in Circle, but also with some of the more like the real science behind it, and really understanding why it is so critical that women come together. I don't know if women have to come together in Circle to be radiantly healthy. I mean, I certainly think that it helps, but let's just talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. In my journey, for those of you who don't know, I've studied holistic healing for over a decade, starting being the type A overachieving, high achieving, I should say, woman that, goes and gets her doctorate, moves to Austin, gets married, passes her boards, played Division I collegiate soccer, and doing all the things, juggling all the balls. And then shortly after all those life stressors, I got super sick. And I went on disability in my late 20s. I had rashes covering my entire body for 2.5 years. And I literally had to quit work as a physical therapist because I could hardly get up the stairs. So drastic shift. And doctors couldn't really figure out what was going on with me. And
right,
so,
like how it went, how did that happen? Have you been able to figure it out since then? How you went did you go from healthy to unhealthy overnight? Or what was the period? How long did that take?
they often say that, when you go through several different life stressors, that can be sort of that catalyst to set off, be that like the straw that breaks the camel's back, so to speak, in terms of bringing on a chronic illness. But that's what it was. Major life stressors, moving, board exams, new job, engaged, married, all within 6 months. And then I also got off birth control pills, which that's a whole nother bag of worms, but that really put my immune system, and I was on it for many years since I was a young child, a young woman, because of painful periods. And so that's a whole nother soapbox that I have. But all of those things was this perfect storm. And I just got chronically fatigued, hair started falling out, rashes all over my body. I mean, this was right after we got married. And so over the course of that year, I just kept getting weaker and more sick to the point of where I couldn't work. And doctors really were not giving me any answers as to what was going on. And so I had been pushing my body pretty hardcore most of my life. And then all of a sudden it was like, bam, athlete, even my looks, my ability to function, my mental capacity, I had brain fog, I couldn't think. I mean, everything that I identified with as who I was just gone.
Yeah.
And so that was a really, so from that point on, I started studying, how do I heal? How do I heal myself? And so that coming back around, I mean, we can go more into my story because it spans, kind of a decade of really looking at what does it take to truly heal beyond nutrition and lifestyle changes, which is what I dove into first, which was foundational. And I studied, so what Camille mentioned is I wrote a book called Sick of Being Sick, The Woman's Holistic Guide to Conquering Chronic Illness. And I studied the people that were healing from catastrophic illness and who were truly taking that and thriving. And one of those key things is connection, is having authentic connection and community. And it's one of the most overlooked pieces. So kind of like coming back around to women's circles through my journey of healing over a decade, which, this piece that wasn't mentioned is I was healing for 8 years and studying all this holistic wellness stuff, and then was diagnosed with cancer. So that was a whole nother level of, okay, what am I missing? And that's when I started, healing on the emotional and the spiritual and deeper levels. But that was also when women came into my world. And so healing from a mastectomy, healing from getting the support and the female support I needed was an integral piece that I had never experienced before. And, you know, even doing the research for the book, I saw how powerful the research is around like loneliness. And, you know, I think it was like chronic loneliness was equivalent to smoking like 5 to 10 cigarettes a day. It was something crazy around the fact that we're hardwired for human connection. And so that was a piece that came later in a healing puzzle for me. And now I'm like, how did I not live without, you know, authentic connection, where we're really connecting in a deep and meaningful way, and we feel seen and heard and valued. So that women's circles have become a really powerful healing force in my journey, but also just in my life and my well-being. I know it is for you as well, but yeah, that kind of is how that all kind of came for me. And connection is one of those 9, and, you know, in my healing framework or my wellness framework, connection is one of those 9 essentials.
I can only imagine how heartbreaking it would be to be on a healing path, because I've also had a healing path, and it's included, you know, that I came to paleo in that same way, and also knew that wasn't, you know, that it was going to require more than just eating, that you know, of course that is more than that, but to already have been what sounds like incredibly committed to your healing path, to then be diagnosed with cancer. What was that like?
Yeah, that's, as you can probably imagine. I mean, you know, we didn't have time to go into it, but I literally, with the same like tenacity of an athlete, as you can probably imagine, if any of you that are really, you know, high achievers and just really competitive. Yeah. I was really focusing on my health in that way. Like, I have to heal myself. I'm 100% committed. My diet's perfect. You know, I'm, you know, sleep, sun, movement, meditation. Like, I was really like, it was almost like a full-time job for me.
Checking it off the boxes.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I became a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, a Tao Flow yoga instructor. Like, I was doing all of these things so that I could heal myself, so that I could feel good and at ease and have a baby one day. And I was like, I'm going to do this. And, but I wasn't living. I mean, I literally spent 8 years. And so to get to that point, literally we were getting ready to go to Italy to start a family. And that's when I found the mass in my breast. So you ask me what that was like. It was like the amount of grief I can't even really describe. I had literally had a panic attack when I found the mass in my breast. I was like, no. And I knew in my soul that it was not, you knew it was not good. I knew it was not good. And so needless to say, you know, we didn't start a family, and we went to Italy. It was bittersweet, and we came back, and I knew the conventional chemotherapy and radiation path was not for me specifically. But I didn't know what to do. And so that's when I had this poignant moment that I read about in my book, where I'm like on my knees, 3 a.m., crying in the night, going, God, what do you want me to do? Like, I've done everything right. What do you want me to do? And so that's when I heard this voice, and I call it the divine whisper, that said, if you're going to survive, you're going to have to learn to listen to your heart. And there was this deep knowing that was crucial. And it was like a freak out, because I was like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that means. This person that's always in her head, always, you know, okay, I'll figure it out on my own. And it was like, no, there's a level of emotional and spiritual, you know, healing here that needs to take place. And this is your divine opportunity to really learn to listen to your heart. And so that was my commitment at that point. So it was challenging.
Were you given a message or a feeling like you're going to, like, you will get through this? Did you feel that piece of like, if I follow this path, then spirit has told me what the outcome will be. Is that how you left that? Like, did that message give you any amount of security?
There was no knowing of like what the outcome would be, but the process,
well, certainly from the earth terms, maybe not, but
yeah.
what was your spiritual sense?
So the process sort of went this way of like, when you're faced with that, you're like, okay, I'm afraid to die. And you go to that place, right? You're like, okay, I could die from this. And you're like, okay, I'm afraid to die. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, no, it's more than that. I'm afraid to die, haven't fully lived. Because I've been living my life for other people, trying to achieve, trying to be successful and being successful on paper, but like not truly loving my life, not truly like having that juiciness of like essence of life and just, you know, having these incredible experiences because I was always just trying to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I was grieving in that moment. And then when I had that message of like, you need to learn to listen to your heart, it was like the only antidote to that is like to live fully now and live from my heart now. And like whatever happens, happens. And so there was this like peace in knowing that like I couldn't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result in my life, which was I was always chasing happiness and joy and like connection and ease was what I wanted. But like I was never actually feeling that, even though I had this incredible husband, you know, incredible job and all these credentials, I wasn't really happy.
Yeah.
So that was that spiritual sense of like healing, you know, and what I came to learn, where my heart navigated was like a whole new expansive understanding of healing was really this return to wholeness. And that's like, we're not guaranteed another day. We're all going to die at some point. Mm-hmm. So it's like, no matter how many green juices and how many, you know, things checks, you know, on the health list that we do, it's never going to get to the point where, you know, we live forever. So there's this, you know, how do I really live fully now and love my life now? And that really was the gift of cancer, was like this catalyst for me to really come home to who I am and love myself and love my life. And that really is underneath all healing, is to really fall in love with yourself and your life, even in the midst of the chaos, even in the midst of the storm, even in the midst of a diagnosis, you know, because it's fear that actually kind of creates more stress and creates more dis-ease in the body. So that was my big learning at that point, was that I needed to shift the way that I was living. And was the message I had peace around. Yeah. I was scared because I was like, I feel like the stakes are high for me to learn right now how to listen to my heart, but there was no other option.
Yeah. Well, stakes are high and the message was clear. You know, it's so interesting, like having now been out of just the paleo conversation for a little while. Mm-hmm. I think I'd forgotten this, but just talking with you really reminds me, and like thinking back to my early days with clean eating and learning about that. And I think it's should not be understated that learning how to take care of your body is important. But what I saw for myself, like long before I said, wait a second, like just this natural health food thing is not at all fulfilling for me if it doesn't include the spiritual stuff, if it doesn't include the emotional stuff, if it doesn't include the deep connection. But even before that, I realized in watching myself and watching other people in the community, the level of stress that we put on ourselves to be perfectly clean. And, oh my gosh, am I being 100% gluten-free? Is this organic? Is this grass-fed? Oh, I'm in a new town. What am I going to eat? You know, like I can only eat, you know, like, and I still know people who function that way, and just remembering that, like taking care of your body and being conscious of what you put into it is really important. But for me these days, I am not going to sweat that stuff if it means that it's going to add on so much stress and tension and anxiety, like I'll just eat a cheeseburger and do it now with presence and peace and compassion for myself. And that, I wish I would have gotten that before, because I think it is easy to just get so neurotic about having to do everything just the right way that you sort of miss the boat, and you can still end up heaping a lot of stress on yourself from, you know, that neurotic obsession with the eating, or I have to go to the gym this many times a week. That's not even talking about how people burn themselves out exercising. But yeah, it's sort of a hard thing to talk about for me, because I do think that clean eating is important, and, you know, all of that stuff does matter, but not to the detriment of feeling like feeling good.
Yeah. And
like not being a stress case about everything all the time.
Yeah. Cause it's more insidious. It's like how we think and feel about something is like, which is the thoughts trigger the emotions, which, you know, we know that our thinking and our feeling states are intricately involved in our bodily processes, our physiology, which, you know, create this disharmony in our body when we're constantly and chronically experiencing depleting emotions like fear and anxiety and overwhelm. And so we can be eating super clean and exercising well and checking those boxes, and then constantly be worried. And those are
always be in that fight or flight state, right? Always be in that place where healing can't actually happen, because can't healing only happen when your body calms down in the parasympathetic state?
Right. It's that rest and digest and repair state, which is that parasympathetic state. And so when you're chronically stressed, like that is one of the key underlying, you know, factors in all development of chronic illness. And so that's why it's so important. You know, it's so funny that you mentioned, not funny, but like I completely relate to what you're saying. Is I was so, I mean, coming from being so sick, and these are some of the women that I've dealt with before. It's like women that have dealt with really significant health issues, and then they, you know, start eating clean, and then they get super scared to go off that path. It becomes this fear thing. And it was for me, like I was in Italy and I almost had a panic attack because I couldn't read the labels in the grocery store. I mean, I'm in Italy and on this beautiful Lake Como, and I'm like, I can't read the labels and I don't know what to get in the grocery store. And so I'm afraid that I'm going to, you know, eat something that reacts and I won't feel good. But that kind of stress was kind of the place that I was at one point in my life. And it's funny that I remember being a couple years ago, and I'm in my cancer journey, where I was working with a mentor that, you know, he teaches clean eating and detoxification and all this stuff. And we're at a party and I go up to him and I say, is there anything, I'm getting ready to leave the retreat. And I said, is there anything to help me on my cancer healing journey? You know, any words of wisdom? And there was a party happening that last day, and it was a woman's birthday, and they had this chocolate cake. And of course, because I didn't know if it was gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, all the things, like I just wouldn't eat it. And he looks at me with the straightest face. I'll never forget it. And I said, what are the like things that I need to focus on to heal myself? And then he looks at me so serious.
Go eat the cake.
He goes, go eat the chocolate cake. And I was like, oh, after all of that. And I literally felt this inside of like, I can't eat the chocolate cake, you know? And then that moment, right, of where like, do I want to live life and eat chocolate cake, or do I want to be afraid of everything? And that's how probably this cancer manifested in the first place. It was that moment of me walking up and being like, I'm going to eat the chocolate cake, you know? So I can really resonate with
it's so funny. I actually, because it's chocolate cake, I will share this little aside, is that I was at a retreat. I think I've shared with you a couple details of it, but I had a very powerful healing and transformation here, or not here on Maui, because I'm not on Maui, last spring. And there was a woman there who, she had been really, really sick, like all the food allergies forever. Mm-hmm. And and she went through this like radical spiritual healing. And after, and like some of the downloads that she got was about like, you were healed, you were free, go eat whatever you want. And so she talks about her healing, and then going and being like buying herself an entire chocolate cake after she had like not done any of that forever. She had been so restricted, and feeling like completely fine, not having any of the reaction she would have had. And it's just such a good reminder, I think, for us that, that really at the core of all of our healing, it is spiritual healing. And it can be hard to talk about and hard to quantify or qualify, because everybody's path is different, and it's not meant to, if depending on where we're at in our journey, eating really clean and healing our gut, that might be exactly what you need to do, but there is something bigger at play happening. And I think underneath it all, just in hearing your conversation and even just thinking about the message that you got from the divine about how to heal your cancer, is that like, you can go through all of the steps of eating clean and doing everything you were doing and not ever address the deeper issues.
Right.
And not by not addressing those deeper issues and still feeling like, because it's a control thing, right? It's, I'm holding on for dear life. I have to do everything I can do to heal my body. And it is this thing of like, I'm trying really hard to be in control of all of it because I'm so afraid of falling apart. I'm so afraid of death, or I'm so afraid. And all of the clean eating in the world, if you don't deal with that underlying dysfunction, can still end you up with cancer.
Yeah. And that's where the journey went, right? Is like looking at those deeper emotional and spiritual pieces, and looking at the beliefs, like why as women, why do we feel like we have to go 90 to nothing and check all the boxes and do all the things and get burnout? Like, why do we do those things? So really looking at our underlying, or, what I do and the work I do with women, it's like, there's these pieces, and like, a lot of it stems from not feeling worthy, or, thinking that we have to prove ourselves a particular way, or believing that in order to be good enough or achieve, or even in spiritual senses or religious senses, go to heaven. Like, there's lots of beliefs, right? That we try
about
to
doing to prove your worth.
Yeah. And so I really had to look at those things, because our beliefs are underneath our thought processes, which are, trigger our emotions, which trigger our actions, which trigger our results in our life. And so, that was like, okay, Brenda, you dialed in the nutrition and the lifestyle stuff, but like the thoughts, the beliefs, the emotional piece, the spiritual piece, some of these other essentials that I dive into, these are all equally important. This true holistic view and heart-centered view, out of the head and into the heart. And how do we do that as women and connect with our heart versus trying to live up here and trying to check the boxes? So we have a whole nation of chronically stressed, chronically ill, burnt out, women that, and you'd be surprised even when I send out a survey, it's like, I don't know what makes me happy anymore. I'm always anxious. I don't know who I am. I feel disconnected from myself. Like, that's a common thing that I see in the women that I work with. And it's like, I get it. I lived most of my life that way. And it took cancer for me to which sometimes that happens for people, but I hope it doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to happen.
That's why I do.
Yeah. After that. Right. And after that 8 or 9 years, you'd already been on your journey of healing, and it was like you were still missing this critical piece that would actually have you be happy, which is listening to your heart. The universe is like, wait, knock, knock, knock. You haven't gotten it all yet. Here you go. Yeah. Which, I'm glad you're through it now. We can talk about it in, sort of lighter terms, because it is actually incredibly scary. I think something that also cannot be understated it's not to say that we can't make progress on our own, But one of the reasons, and I know I've shared this with you in private, but one of the reasons why I have shifted the School of Inner Beauty to this Inner Beauty Collective and really focusing on individual communities one at a time is because I see women like you as this really critical piece for transformation of our women's communities. And I mean, you're really such a perfect example. You know, you went from one place, you were in a desperate place with your health, and then you now have come to this other place with this like cancer hiccup even in the middle of that, where you have traveled the road of healing. And for a woman who might be listening to this, you know, who may not be in as desperate of a situation as cancer, but who may be like really dealing with stuff that she doesn't know how to get through, I think that it is so important that we have people to stand alongside of us to walk us through that journey, to not just with this is how to do the thing, because we can learn how to do almost anything just by Googling it at this point. But so it's not that we suffer from a lack of information, but I think that we do on these, because the journey that you're talking about is a journey of a lifetime. It's like your soul came here for this journey. But to try to walk that path on your own without, like, how many mentors and coaches and guides and then I also want you to tell me the story about how you did your first women's circle and like that surprise circle that came, and about how you ended up going into your surgery. I would love for you to share that story, but I'd love to just talk a little bit about that, about highlighting that it really does take a community to heal. That I don't think that most people, as much as, you know, we may like to think that I am an island and I can do it all on my own. You know, a lot of us probably grew up with limiting beliefs that I am on my own, that I can't trust other people, that they don't even think to look for a coach. They don't even think to look for a women's group or a circle, because they're just so programmed to go it on my own. I can't trust others, or I just need to figure it out myself. When what I think we say and know is to become the woman you want to be is going to require support and help along the way, and investing in that support, that emotional support, a coach to help you in those days that are where you feel like you just can't go any further, or, you know, to get your butt off the couch after a long day of work and get yourself into a circle. All of these things, I know for me and for you, have been integral in your healing process. So I'd love for you to certainly share more about how you went to your first circle, because I love that story. And also the kinds of different coaches and healers that you worked with that helped to get you through, because you didn't do this on your own.
Oh no. And I'm so eternally grateful for the people, the coaches and the mentors that showed up in my life. And that's what I really believe when I was committed to my heart. It was so beautiful and amazing how the right people started crossing my path. I heard, you know, someone or something, or someone referred to me. But I mean, even just my first mentor, the chocolate cake guy that I was telling you guys about, you know, having someone that can hold space for you and affirm your wholeness and the truth of who you are until you know that, until you really get that, to heal from something like cancer, to heal from anything. There's so much fear involved. We're so programmed to be afraid and disconnected from who we really are. And when a mentor can come in and say, no, I know this about you. I know that you have the power within you to heal. I know you deserve health and happiness, and I'm going to hold that for you. I think that's one of the greatest gifts you can ever receive or give as a human. And like, that is what a really good coach and mentor can do. And that's what I needed. Like, there was no way I was going to get out of fear on my own. And so I had so
well,
many
and perspectives, you know, like I think that we get really stuck in our point of views, and we don't even realize it's a point of view because it's just how we see the world. It's like I wake up in the morning and I think these thoughts and I do these things and then I repeat. Like we really
Yes.
are robotic. Just being a human is just, there are just default patterns of how we think and how we act, and we just assume that it's true. We don't stop to really question, is this just my point of view? And that's why we have to have other people to give us, like what you just said. I think that that is one of the most important reasons to have this network of support if you're really committed to becoming your best self.
Yeah.
It's because they are going to constantly question, like, oh, but I'm just, you know, blah, 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 reason, excuse, all of the things. This is how I see myself. And what a good coach will do is say, wait a second, that's not true. This is actually who you are. And what about this? Step over here and see what I see. Step over here and see the possibility from this vantage point. And it, of course, having tools and prescriptions, or like that stuff is important too. But because we're robots and because we have these neural pathways in our brains, that we've got stronger connections, right? We have the strong connections that is just all of the thoughts you think all the day. And then we have all of the ways that maybe we would like to be, or we would like to think, or how we would like to show up. But those are the connections that need to be those are the connections that need to be strengthened, right? And having coaches, having people who will shake us out of our fog and our delusion about who we think we are, and then help us to strengthen those pathways, I think is so important. I just saw, I had this coach, Lance, who was, when I was doing all of my years at Landmark, and he was my first official coach. And oh God, he's probably like 6 years younger than me. I don't know. He's just like this young guy. And I remember when he started coaching me, and he would just say stuff to me, and I would just get so I was just so mad every time I'd talk to him. Like, who do you think you are? You don't know me. And I would just get triggered, and I would be resistant, and he would tell me to do something and I wouldn't want to do it. And I would fight with him, and I would, and I would oh my gosh, I was such a pain in the ass. But and he was probably, I don't think he was only my coach for like 6 or 7 months, but I still think about him and about how he did that for me. Like, he would just question all of the words that came out of my mouth, and the truth that I pretended that was not truth. It seemed true to me, but all it was limiting beliefs, excuses, and ways of thinking that kept me locked in to the way that I was. And, you know, Einstein says a problem cannot be solved with the same energy that created it. And
Right.
so if we want to actually rise out of our problems, it is incredibly difficult, if not damn near impossible, to do it by ourselves, because we're coming in with the problem that starts everything, as the problems in our brain. And even as I'm, you know, going through everything that I'm going through and stepping more into my leadership and into creating the things that are my visions and all of the things that want to hold me back, I still think about him, and I still think about the things that he says. And I still sometimes be like, well, what would Lance say about this? And then I'm like, and I could actually hear his voice back there. I haven't even talked to him in probably 5 years, maybe even 7. I don't even know how long it's been, but that is the power of having really strong accountability and coaching, and someone who is a committed listener, someone who says, I don't care what you say you are, I say you're this, and I'm committed to seeing you and speaking to you as your highest self, as the highest possibility of who you can be, and not settling for less. Yeah. and I just think that too many of us are doing this Lone Ranger game of thinking that you're going to go become this like new and improved version of yourself without ever creating, well, one, getting the people out of your life that are, you know, empowering your smallness, and putting yourself around the community of people who are going to stand for, believe in, and just continue to see you in your greatness. And I mean, also why doing these circles and having them available for women every week, and available for me, like for all of us, so that we can reprogram how we are by committing to being in new environments. You know, in Circle, it's, you know, practicing the gifts of the feminine. We practice a lot of this. Now we're talking about type A, high achieving, stress, anxiety. I mean, that's all in the, you know, a lot of that, it's all that yang energy, right? It's that going, doing. And, you know, especially for us as women, like we can't stay, we have much less testosterone. We can't stay in those patterns for nearly as long as most men can without burning out. Not that it's good for them either, but, you know, for coming, this is why I say, you know, Circle is meant to be a regular part of coming into that yin energy, coming into your feminine flow. I mean, we haven't talked a lot about that, but and I just went on this long rant about how important it is that we do have that, but it is that important, and I want that for certainly in what we're doing in Austin, for more women to say, you know, I am committed to becoming my best self, and I recognize that I can't do it alone. And now, you know, in certainly in our community, we have women like you who have done the journey, who are walking the walk, who are not just saying this is how you be awesome, but actually saying, well, actually, to heal cancer, it requires these things, you know, that we have these women that are available who can hold your hand through that journey. It's really important.
Absolutely. And that's like, even I was reminded too, when I was starting to get coached too, it's like even the greatest performers and athletes have coaches, Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods. And it's like you were saying,
they have coaches for everything.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? It's back in the landmark world. It's like, there's all these like blind spots. And so, yeah. So just kind of recapping that. Yeah. I even, you know, my client the other day was like, she was on vacation and she was like, I heard your voice say this in my ear. And it's like, you know, it's like we need each other to point that out. Like I still need my coaches, and we will all need to have someone and have a fresh perspective and to hold us in, you know, and as our highest self is so extraordinary. And then, yeah, in community, in with other women, there is something magical about, you know, some magical healing presence that's just when women come together, allowing us to really sink into more of the feminine, which is really what we need to heal as not only as women, but as men and women and as humanity, is to invite more of the beingness and the feminine qualities into our lives and the ways that we live. And so settling into Circle to connect in a compassionate way and to just allow what's there to be there, to cry, to laugh, just that is such powerful medicine.
Yeah.
So
it's something, there was actually, I think that I've shared this with you, but there was this really awesome study that came out that actually shows the difference between how men and women respond differently to stress. So like what men will automatically do, and I don't want to draw too much of a blanket statement because it's not all women and it's not all men.
Right.
And I can definitely say that I have responded in a masculine way in the past, but that men will fight or flight if they're under stress, and women have something that's called tend and befriend. And that comes from I just think about like way back when we were just first humaning, I don't like, it's so far a very long time ago, but when we were living in tighter communities with one another, when we were living in tribes, that was the way, like, we supported each other in the care and sustaining of our families and our babies. And I imagine maybe the men are out being the lone hunters, right? Out hunting for the meal, and the women are all together, you know, like caring for the babies and caring for each other's babies. And like that, it just, that there is an actual biological response when you are in stress, and when we come to one another, you know, even if it's to gab on the phone, just to talk, but that it actually releases oxytocin in our body, and that oxytocin floods to like basically neutralize the cortisol. I hope I'm getting that right. I don't know if that's 100% right, but which really just is such a testament to why we need these structures built in for women to be able to come together, because stress, we know that stress kills. Mm-hmm. We know that stress causes inflammation, and we know that inflammation is at the root of illness. And so I just wish that every woman knew that an antidote to high stress and this anxiety and all of this is coming together, is being together, is just being seen and understood and having a place to speak. That's why we do all of this authentic relating stuff in our circles, is like, how much in our daily life do we just have the opportunity to, you know, get things off our chest, to really have containers by which we are able to be seen, heard, and understood, and how critical that is in this whole conversation of being able to remain calm in the storms of life.
Yeah, absolutely. It was for me. It was like, I entered into Women's Circle for the first time just during my cancer journey. And when I walked out of it, I was a different person. It was like so potent. The medicine was so potent.
Can you tell the story just about how it actually, I loved when you told me that story, and
sure.
I like how it was set up, and like not even knowing what to expect. And I'm now telling the story for you, but
yeah. Well, so what Camille's referring to is, you know, the story of healing cancer is many different ins and outs, but I had been traveling to a couple different healing centers in the United States, seeking out alternative care, natural holistic care. And all of that, we basically spent our life savings and sold our home. We were living in California. Every day I would go get treatment, and we ended up having to sell our home from California. So as you can imagine, that was a pretty intense time. And so all of that treatment, we were hoping to shrink the tumor to be able to be a candidate for this freezing it. It's this other procedure. And it didn't work. And so I was really faced with, after spending all of this money, being to 2 different clinics, granted, I knew that it was helping, but it wasn't shrinking the tumor to the point where it was up against the pec wall, and I had to make a choice that if it infiltrated the wall, then I wasn't a candidate for surgery. And so I felt God speak to me and say it was time for me to go home and have the surgery, the mastectomy. And as you can imagine, if any one of you have gone through a mastectomy, just the idea of losing a breast, and that's an intense thing. And I have been traveling on the road, mostly dealing with this alone. Not dealing with alone. My husband was an amazing support. But when I say alone, I meant I consciously chose not to tell a whole bunch of people, so that I could really tune into my heart and really listen and not have the outside world telling me what to do. And so my husband and I, he was an incredible man that just dropped everything. It was like, let's spend our entire savings doing whatever it is that you feel called in your heart to do. And yeah, I will forever love that man. But we came home from all of that, feeling defeated. We moved out of our house within a couple days, just pack everything up, California, cross country to Texas, pack everything up, move out, go live with our in-laws at our in-laws' lake house. And okay, I'm having surgery in a couple weeks. And I just felt absolute fear and panic. What would that be like to lose a breast? And why is this happening? Why did it not work? I mean, all the things you can imagine. And I was practicing really learning a lot from Brene Brown, as many of you know her and her work with vulnerability. And I was really just kind of like looking at, okay, the power of vulnerability, of really like leaning into that and opening up to connect more authentically with people. And I was a little skeptical of it. I was like, I don't want to connect. I do want connection, but I'm afraid to really be vulnerable. And so it was one evening in the condo a week away from surgery, and I felt like I was going to explode in my chest. I felt so much anxiety and so much grief about the thought of losing a breast. I was like, I just need women. Like, my husband just doesn't understand what it would be like. And so I reached out on my computer. Wrote an email to all of my friends, my girlfriends, my close girlfriends. And I said, this is happening. I'm home. I'm going to have surgery in a week or two, I think it was. And I don't know what I need, but I need help. And I shut the computer and like ran out the door, because I was so like overwhelmed with the vulnerability hangover of like, I just was so vulnerable asking for help. And one of my dear sister friends, she's a healer and has experience with women's circles. She said, can I have a healing circle for you? And I thought, what is that? And, but I was like, sure. And so she basically just told me to show up, and I showed up, and there were flowers and candles and soft music. And we sat in a circle, and she facilitated this experience where it allowed me to share everything that had been going on, and all the women to address me and to share with me. And I laid on the floor and cried, and they just held me. And I just cried and released all of my fears, and we wrote them all down and we burned them. And it was one of the most life-changing experiences. Like, it was the courage and the strength I needed to go into that surgery. And I literally walked away from that into surgery with my earphones on in the waiting room, dancing. And I was like, I got this. Like, I am so held. I am so loved. I just felt the love of God, the love of the divine through these women. And I just felt so safe and supported. And it was like one of the most potent medicines and healings that I've had. And it was like, I wasn't taking any supplements. I wasn't taking it was just the medicine of these women loving me in such a deep way. And that woke up I'm like getting teary. It woke up a huge passion in me, because every single woman in that experience came up to me or talked to me after and was like, why do we not do that? And I was like, I don't know, but I have to keep doing this. I have to provide this for women. And so that was really my motivation to get started in women's circles, was for myself to recreate that so that I could have that consistently. And then that turned into this passion of like, this is a missing piece of the healing puzzle and the equation of thriving for women. Like, this is so important. And so that's really where my whole journey with women's circles started, which was really powerful.
Yeah, it's so interesting, having started the conversation just talking about paleo, and like I was returning to my own early days of clean eating, and just how we exist in that way. And fast forwarding to talking about the depth of healing that comes from us being with each other and what's possible. And I mean, I understand why. I know that some women are afraid of coming to circle, and they're afraid of like just being real with strangers, but I wish that every woman would just trust to just come and to be able to have that kind of experience. Because you're right, and this is why we're doing what we're doing, because women coming together in these supportive kinds of ways is water in the desert. It is, whether you have cancer, whether you're sick, whether you're anything, it's just this foundational piece that we have discovered is just like water to our souls, and that we can provide something for one another inside of these safe spaces that is entirely different from what it's just like in the world for women to interact. Because for most women in the world, interacting with each other is just not that.
Yeah. When we have, like, going back to beliefs and like old programs, we have ways of being that we show up that like women aren't to be trusted, or that we have to compete, or that we compare, or that they're not safe, or I've been hurt in the past, or, you know, I'm afraid if I reveal something about myself that, you know, I can't trust. And it's just this whole thing, right? That we have these stories around it that keeps us closed off from that connection that we so deeply desire. And so that's the invitation for us all, is letting go of the past and really beginning to lean into vulnerability and begin to share and open up in a safe and sacred space. Granted, like, I did go to other support groups with women. I did not have a good experience. It was a very like cold, sterile experience. And so there's something special and sacred about a circle that's really held with this, with love and this place of everyone being seen and heard and non-judgment. And there's just, it's a new and different experience.
I think safety.
Yeah. Safety is huge. Yeah. So and if they haven't experienced something like that before, it's understandable why a woman might be nervous and have had experiences in the past. But that's how we grow, is we be willing. I guess the invitation is to be willing to lean into the vulnerability of it and begin to trust to see what's possible. So we can expand possibilities and new experiences to live our best self. Awesome.
Good stuff. I love your story. I think this is the second or third time I've heard pieces of this, and I just love what your story illustrates in terms of just the possibility of healing, and so grateful for you and just what you bring to our circles. And it is quite clear in being with you in the space of circle how much it means to you and how committed you are to these experiences being available for women. And it really is. It's so beautiful and it's so needed. And I feel really honored to just be able to help to bring them to more communities and more women. I know you feel the same.
I do. Yes. And I feel the same about you. I really appreciate you and your vision and standing for so many women and to have this experience, because that, like, it's been such an integral piece in your life and in your well-being. And it's like, just the opportunity to create that space for people. So I honor and admire, and you're inspiring to me. So thank you for allowing me and inviting me to be a part of Inner Beauty Collective. So
yeah, of course. And just talking about stress, type A, anxiety, like all of those things still happen for me. And I go to all of our circles, and now we have circles like almost every week. And every time I go to circle for myself, I'm like, it's just such a deep sigh of relief, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I'm with my women, and the energy change is distinct. And I feel myself, I always say, like, you know, I start circle and my energy is usually in my head, like I'm still up in my head and I'm still in my thoughts, and it's still like happening up here. And then, you know, come the end of circle, it's, I'm in my body. I'm relaxed. I am at home in me and loving and appreciating myself along with all of the other women. And it's really special. I love it. So I know we have to wrap up. We mentioned, I know most of you listening are probably going to listen to this after the fact, but Brenda does have a really powerful circle happening tomorrow night here in Austin. You want to just mention that. And I hope that you will be offering more of this circle in the future, even if they miss out on tomorrow night.
Yeah, so the circle, so we typically call it a radiant healing circle or radiant women's circle, but this theme tomorrow night is being the calm in the storm. And so just alluding or, kind of talking about what we were talking about today is the importance of really finding your calm, your inner peace, and how important that is not only in healing, but living our best life, and how the majority of women are struggling with stress, overwhelm, anxiety, and how that gets in the way for, not only in our health, but living our best life. And so we're going to dive into, in a more, more intimate setting, smaller circle, share, and also, I'm going to combine modern science, some tools and techniques that I've learned with also some ancient practice, some indigenous wisdom on how we can learn to find our center and our calm. So yeah, it's a topic that I love to dive into and to experience together in a circle. So like you said, just even going to a circle will help calm no matter the topic, but we're going to go a little bit deeper and experience some of these tools so that you can walk away with practical things that you can do and incorporate in your life. So I would love for you to join me.
And we will have the link for that for those of you who can come in that time. And then also tell us about your book. I think are you doing something special with your book right now?
Yes. So, for this airing for this podcast, so I'm happy to. So, my book, just to reiterate, is "Sick of Being Sick: The Woman's Holistic Guide to Conquering Chronic Illness." I actually have it right here. I just got the hard copies. So, yay! So the hard copy comes out in September for purchase, but I'm happy to give all of our beautiful inner beauty women a free complimentary copy, an electronic copy. So you can go to www.sickofbeingsickbook.com. And you can put that in the notes, but they can download a free copy of that. Or even contact me to learn more about it. I'm also always available, or at least for the time being, doing complimentary consults and really, diving in with women to chat. And so if that's something that interests you, you can also contact me.
And are you, I'm sorry. Yes, go. Sorry. Contact you at, you were about to say something.
Yeah, an easy way to, if you're interested in that, is www.brendawalding.com. If you want to set up a time to chat with me about what's going on with you, if you're dealing with stress, anxiety, overwhelm, or any sort of health challenge, I'm happy to see how I might be able to support you. So because
you are sometimes taking on, I know sometimes you're full with clients, but sometimes you do have spaces available.
Yes.
Do you do one-on-one coaching or group coaching? How do you work with women through this journey of?
Yeah. So I generally, I will talk with a woman and kind of get a feel for where she's at and how I can best support her, and then come up with a plan. But it's right now generally one-on-one work via Zoom, so I can work with anyone all over. And then, there is a group component also to some capacity, but focus. The beginning is usually one-on-one, and then I do my women's circles and workshops and stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yay. Oh, so fun. Thank you, Camille, for having me.
I'm so happy to have you and to hear your story. And I just see you as one of the most beautiful, radiant leaders that we have. I mean, just to be able to pull the whole, it really feels to me like with all that you've done in this whole story. I mean, I've interviewed so many people, and I've been in this natural health game for quite some time. And I think a big part of why I really just got so tapped out with, as much as the natural health world is great and paleo is great and eating healthy is important and supplementation is important, that for me, it is not a complete journey if you don't get all the way to the heart of it. And for me, and understanding, I can't say all women, but most women, the component of coming together and the certainly like all it being a full body, mind, spirit approach. I think people are understanding that more these days, but to really bring in that piece of connection and 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 community um, and and having people that come alongside of you in your healing is really important. And I wish that every person in the natural health world included that. But you,
Yes.
and you do. For you, it really is so holistic with all of the tools that you have. And so I'm just really excited to see you continue to reach more and more and more women of this message, with this message of what's possible for us, because it's a lot. There's a lot possible for us.
Yeah. And I think just to distill it down is, you know, my message that I got and my journey and my research of women and men that are overcoming health challenges and thriving, because we want to thrive, is like, what does it really take? And so, yeah, that's really with the book and my coaching. It's like, yes, I can teach you nutrition and lifestyle, but like, how do I implement this wholehearted wellness approach in my life? Because I don't want to just like heal and overcome these like things. Like I want to live my most
feel really good.
Right.
Like
body,
live what
mind,
you came here for. Why did we come to this planet? What did we come here to do? What is the possibility for us in this human form? Let's do that.
Yeah. And it's not super clear, just living in our normal society. And that's why this book is like the culmination of like, these are the 9 essentials that I came across in my research and my own experiences. Like, what does it take to heal and thrive? And so like, that's my work. And underneath it all is really helping women just to come home to themselves, to really come home to who they are in body, in mind, in heart, and in spirit. And so that is my purpose on the planet. And if that resonates, I would love to connect with you. I love you all, ladies. And hope I see you in Circle.
Yes. For those of you who are, yes, come to Circle, come to her circle, come to our circles.
Come to all the circles.
Check it. Come to all the circles forever, always.
Yes. Oh.
No pressure. All right. So with that, thank you, Brenda. And thank you all for the listeners. Thank you for being here with us. Don't know when the next episode's coming out. We're sort of doing these a bit sporadically. The last one was 2 months ago, but I will be taking the whole season of this podcast is to highlight all of you beauties here in Austin, and so there will be more of these sometime in the future. And we'll catch you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.